The smartest guys in the room. That is what they called themselves. Harvard MBAs, McKinsey consultants, Nobel Prize winners on the board. They revolutionized energy trading. They transformed natural gas into Wall Street gold. Fortune magazine named them America's most innovative company 6 years in a row. By August 2000, Enron was the 7th largest corporation in America. $90 per share. $70 billion market cap. 20,000 employees. Then it all collapsed. Not over years, over weeks. By December 2001, Enron was bankrupt. Stock worth 26 cents. $74 billion in shareholder value vaporized. 20,000 jobs gone. $2 billion in pensions lost. The smartest guys in the room were not smart. They were criminals. This is the story of Enron, the biggest corporate fraud in history, and the executives who destroyed thousands of lives. Let us begin with Kenneth Lee Lay, born April 15, 1942, in Tyrone, Missouri. His father was a Baptist preacher. His family was poor, very poor. They lived without indoor plumbing until Ken was nearly a teenager. His father ran a general store that failed. To help his family survive, young Ken delivered newspapers. He cut grass. He worked on farms. Anything to earn money. But Ken was smart and ambitious. He attended the University of Missouri, earning a bachelor's degree in economics, then a master's, then a PhD in economics from the University of Houston. By the 1970s, Ken Lay was moving up. He worked for Exxon, then the Pentagon, then the Federal Power Commission. He learned the energy business. He learned regulation. He learned politics. In 1984, Lay became CEO of Houston Natural Gas. It was a regional pipeline company. Nothing special, but Ken Lay had bigger plans. In 1985, Nebraska-based InterNorth sought to fend off a corporate raider named Irwin Jacobs. They needed a white knight. They found Ken Lay. On July 16, 1985, Houston Natural Gas and InterNorth merged. The deal was worth $2.3 billion. It created America's second-largest natural gas pipeline system, 37,000 miles of pipe. The company was initially called HNG InterNorth. They briefly considered Enron. Someone pointed out it meant intestines. Bad idea. They settled on Enron in February 1986. The new company nearly died at birth. Enron reported a $14 million first-year loss. The company carried debt totaling 3/4 of equity. They paid over $50 million monthly in interest. They had to pay off Irwin Jacobs with $350 million. $230 million came from employee retirement funds. A cruel foreshadowing, but Lay survived. He emerged with dangerous confidence. His speechwriter later observed, "What's interesting is that Lay really had no major setback in his long career. He was very smart, energetic, and driven, and a very high achiever." It carried over to Enron. He got to the point that he could not envision failure for Enron or himself. Lay's courtly charm helped. Like everyone's grandfather, jurors would later say, he was soft-spoken, polite, religious. He projected trustworthiness. But beneath the charm lay questionable judgment. In 1987, traders in Enron's Valhalla, New York office gambled beyond their limits. They racked up $1 billion in trading losses. When auditors discovered the wrongdoing, Lay reportedly told them to keep making us millions. The traders were eventually fired. But the episode revealed a culture willing to look the other way when money was flowing. Ken Lay became politically connected. Very connected. He was close with the Bush family. George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush, Dick Cheney. He donated millions to political campaigns. He flew politicians on Enron's private jets. He lobbied for deregulation, for favorable treatment, and he got it. Ken Lay was not just a CEO, he was a power broker, and he used that power to build Enron into an empire. By 2000, Ken Lay seemed untouchable. He had wealth, fame, political connections, a company worth $70 billion, but it was all built on lies. And Ken Lay knew it. Jeffrey Keith Skilling was born November 25, 1953. He grew up in suburban New Jersey. He was brilliant, competitive, arrogant. He graduated in the top 5% of his Harvard Business School class in 1979. When his instructor asked if he was smart, Skilling replied, "I'm fucking smart." That arrogance would define him. After Harvard, Skilling joined McKinsey and Company, the elite consulting firm. He worked in their Houston office. He specialized in energy. In 1989, Ken Lay hired McKinsey to help Enron develop new business strategies. Skilling was the lead consultant. Skilling developed a revolutionary concept, the gas bank. Enron would serve as an intermediary between gas buyers and sellers. It would guarantee both supply and price. This transformed natural gas into a tradable commodity, like gold or oil. The innovation impressed Lay profoundly. He hired Skilling away from McKinsey in 1990. Skilling had one non-negotiable condition. Enron must adopt mark-to-market accounting for the new trading operation. Mark-to-market accounting allows a company to record the present value of anticipated future profits from a contract immediately upon signing. You sign a 20-year deal. You book 20 years of profits today. Never mind that no cash has come in. Never mind that the future is uncertain. You record it all now. The SEC approved this in 1991. It was intelligent gambling, Skilling said, but it became the foundation of Enron's fraud. Once you book future profits today, you must keep signing bigger deals to show growth. It is a treadmill. You cannot stop. If you stop, the illusion collapses. Skilling's favorite book was Richard Dawkins' The Selfish Gene. He took its Darwinian principles to heart. He believed that money is the only thing that motivates people. This philosophy poisoned Enron's culture. During a company-wide meeting, Skilling himself said, "Money is the only thing that motivates people." It was almost like a commandment. Skilling instituted the Performance Review Committee, nicknamed rank-and-yank. Twice yearly, managers assembled in windowless conference rooms for up to 2 days. They evaluated every employee. Rankings flashed on computer screens. 5% received superior ratings with massive bonuses. 30% excellent, 30% strong, 20% satisfactory, and 15% needs improvement. That bottom 15% had 6 months to improve or be fired. Even if everyone performed well, someone had to fall into the bottom 15%. The system rewarded short-term results over sustainable growth. Employees lied. They manipulated numbers. They did anything to avoid the bottom. As Time magazine put it, managers assemble twice a year to evaluate and cull employees as if they were head of cattle. The trading floor culture was aggressive, testosterone-fueled, reckless. Lou Pai, CEO of Enron Energy Services, was notorious for visiting strip clubs on shareholder money. When he resigned due to divorce proceedings, he had already sold $250 million in Enron stock. Fortuitous timing. Skilling's arrogance grew with the stock price. He called ExxonMobil a dinosaur. He boasted there was a very reasonable chance Enron would become the largest corporation in the world. On April 17, 2001, analyst Richard Grubman questioned why Enron couldn't produce a balance sheet with its earnings. Skilling snapped, You. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Asshole. The comment shocked Wall Street. It was a red flag. Jeffrey Skilling transformed Enron from a pipeline company into a trading powerhouse. He created the asset-light strategy. Enron didn't need physical assets. It would be a trader, not a producer. By 2000, Enron owned 5,000 fewer miles of pipe than in 1985. But its gas financial transactions represented over 20 times its pipeline capacity. Skilling was promoted to President and Chief Operating Officer in 1997, then CEO in February 2001. He had reached the top, but the fraud he built was unsustainable. And Jeffrey Skilling knew it. Andrew Stewart Fastow was born December 22, 1961. He grew up in New Jersey. He attended Tufts University, then Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern, earning his MBA in 1986. He worked at Continental Illinois Bank, where he learned about asset-backed securities, moving assets off balance sheets. Financial engineering. Jeffrey Skilling hired Fastow in 1990. Fastow was 29 years old. He impressed Skilling with his financial creativity. In 1998, Fastow was promoted to Chief Financial Officer. He was 37, young for such a position, but Skilling trusted him. Big mistake. Fastow created a Byzantine web of special purpose entities, SPEs. Under accounting rules, An SPE could be kept off a company's balance sheet if an independent outside investor owned at least 3% of its equity. Fasto exploited this loophole shamelessly. In 1997, Fasto created Chuco Investments. It was supposed to be independent, but it was secretly controlled by Fasto through his subordinate Michael Copper. Half of the $11.4 million used to purchase the required 3% equity came from Enron itself, meaning only 1.5% was truly from outsiders. Copper received $2 million in management fees for unclear services. He pocketed $10.5 million when Chuco was unwound. Chuco accounted for $400 million, 80% of all Enron's SPE restatements. In June 1999, Fasto created LJM1, named after his wife Leah and children Jeffrey and Matthew. He convinced the Enron board to grant him an exemption from the company's ethics code, so he could serve as both Enron's CFO and manager of partnerships doing business with Enron. The board determined his participation would not adversely affect the interests of Enron catastrophically. Wrong. LJM1 was created to hedge Enron's $300 million investment in Rhythm's net connections, but the hedge was fraudulent. Enron funded it with its own stock. If both Rhythms and Enron fell, the hedge would fail. A true hedge requires using equity of a competitor, not your own stock. In October 1999, Fasto created LJM2. He raised $394 million from major financial institutions: Wachovia, J.P. Morgan, Chase, Credit Suisse, First Boston, Citigroup, Merrill Lynch. LJM2 created 4 SPEs called the Raptors, named after the velociraptors in Jurassic Park. 2. Hedge more of Enron's risky investments. The Raptor structure revealed the fraud's audacity. Enron transferred approximately $537 million in restricted Enron shares to Raptor Y, received notes worth $350 million in exchange. Talon sold Enron a put option for $41 million. Then Talon would pay Enron for investment losses, but it was funded only with Enron's own stock. When Enron stock fell, the Raptors couldn't cover losses. By Q3 2001, the Raptors had a combined deficiency over $500 million. Enron bought them from LJM2 for $35 million and recorded a $544 million after-tax loss. Enron also reclassified $1.2 billion from assets to a reduction in shareholders' equity, the largest single write-down. Through this web of fraudulent transactions, Andrew Fasto personally made $45 million. On October 23, 2001, he revealed this total to board directors. They fired him 2 days later, but the damage was done. Enron's off-balance sheet machinations hid staggering amounts. The company owed more than $30 billion in actual debt. Its audited balance sheet appeared nearly debt-free. Approximately $7 to $8 billion in liabilities were improperly recorded as trading proceeds rather than debt. Nearly $4 billion in potential losses from obligations triggered if Enron's stock or credit rating fell were not disclosed until November 2001. The abuse of mark-to-market accounting, combined with SPEs, resulted in Enron's reported revenues being approximately 95% overstated. Andrew Fasto created the machinery of fraud, and he got rich doing it. Jeffrey Skilling's asset-light strategy revolutionized Enron's business model. The company didn't need physical assets. It would be a trader, not a producer. Between 1996 and 2000, Enron's revenues increased by more than 750%, from $13.3 billion to $100.7 billion. For the first 9 months of 2001, Enron reported $138.7 billion in revenues. This 65% annual growth rate was extraordinary. Fortune named Enron America's most innovative company for 6 consecutive years. 1996 through 2001. The company evolved from natural gas pipelines to energy trading to broadband, paper, steel, water, and even weather derivatives. In late 1999, Enron launched Enron Online, one of the first internet-based commodity trading platforms. It was revolutionary. Users could buy and sell energy products directly online with real-time pricing. Within months, Enron Online was handling over $2.5 billion in trades daily. It became the largest e-commerce site in the world by transaction volume. Enron served as market maker on both sides of trades. This gave it enormous power and proprietary information. In January 2000, Lay and Skilling announced Enron was entering the broadband fiber optic business. The stock skyrocketed from $40 per share in January to $70 in March to $90.75 on August 23, 2000. Enron's all-time peak. The company achieved a market capitalization of $60 to $70 billion, the seventh largest publicly traded company in America. But beneath the soaring stock price lay fundamental hollowness. As Bethany McLean and Peter Elkind would later write, everything was perception, nothing was real. Enron's broadband business was a disaster. The technology didn't work, the deals were fake, but they kept booking profits. Mark-to-market accounting allowed it. Enron promoted RICE as their core values: respect, integrity, communication, excellence. One vandalized poster found during the collapse read, "Enron, our values, integrity. We are out to prove that good guys do come out ahead," with someone having added in Sharpie. "We will give it to you straight up the butt." The company was hollow, but the stock kept rising, because the smartest guys in the room kept lying. During 2000 to 2001, California experienced an energy crisis. Wholesale electricity prices rose 277%. Multiple large-scale rolling blackouts occurred. Pacific Gas and Electric went bankrupt. Estimated $9 billion in overcharges to California consumers. Total economic damage exceeded $40 billion. Who caused it? Enron traders, deliberately. They used colorfully named schemes to manipulate markets. Fat Boy. Falsely reporting future electricity needs to create artificial scarcity. Death Star. Charging to relieve phantom transmission congestion. Get Shorty. Ricochet. Circumventing price caps by selling power out of state, then buying it back. Others with names like Black Widow, Bigfoot, and Red Congo. Traders deliberately ordered power plants shut down during peak demand. On January 16, 2001, trader Bill Williams called a Las Vegas power plant. We want you guys to get a little creative and come up with a reason to go down. The most damning evidence came from approximately 2,600 hours of audio tapes. These revealed traders' true attitudes. The Grandma Millie exchange. They're fucking taking all the money back from you guys? All the money you guys stole from those poor grandmothers in California? Yeah, Grandma Millie, man. But she's the one who couldn't figure out how to fucking vote on the butterfly ballot. Yeah. Now she wants her fucking money back for all the power you've charged right up. Jammed right up her asshole for fucking $250 a megawatt hour. When a forest fire shut down a major transmission line, cutting power supplies and raising prices, traders celebrated. Burn, baby, burn. That's a beautiful thing. One trader discussing a business owner complaining about high prices. I just looked at him. I said, "Move." The guy was like horrified. I go, "Look, don't take it the wrong way. Move. It isn't getting fixed anytime soon." Kenneth Lay was the largest single contributor to George W. Bush's political career. Vice President Cheney gave Lay unrestricted White House access and opposed price caps. When Senator Feinstein tried 3 or 4 times to meet with Bush about the crisis, she was refused. Enron's political protection allowed the manipulation to continue. California burned. Enron profited. And they laughed about it. On August 14, 2001, Jeffrey Skilling suddenly resigned as CEO, after serving only 6 months. He cited personal reasons. The resignation was suspicious. Skilling forfeited a $2 million debt forgiveness by leaving early. He had sold almost $60 million worth of Enron stock. Stock dropped 14% to around $36. Kenneth Lay returned as CEO. He insisted on an evening conference call. "I never felt better about the company. The company is in the strongest shape that it's ever been in." It was a lie. The next day, August 15, 2001, Vice President for Corporate Development. Sharon Watkins sent an anonymous memo to Ken Lay, entitled Potential Rational Explanations for Accounting Improprieties. The memo began, "I am incredibly nervous that we will implode in a wave of accounting scandals." The memo detailed off-balance sheet special purpose entities hiding massive debts, inflated earnings through accounting loopholes, specific problems with transactions and partnerships. A few days later, Watkins identified herself and secured a personal meeting with Lay on August 22. In congressional testimony, Watkins described the meeting. She told Lay it was widely known that Skilling had made numerous secret side deals with Fasto. She said one executive told her, although it would be devastating for Enron, that he wished Enron would get caught because it was such a crooked company. Lay seemed to take her pretty seriously and actually winced in pain as she detailed questionable deals. Within 2 days, Lay contacted Vinson & Elkins, Enron's own law firm, which predictably concluded no further action was necessary. Despite Watkins's detailed warnings, Lay continued to reassure employees and investors. On September 26, 2001, at a company meeting, Lay told employees that Enron stock at $27 a share was an incredible bargain. He claimed, "The third quarter is looking great, and we will hit our numbers." It was all lies. 2 weeks later, everything unraveled. Sharon Watkins tried to warn them. Ken Lay ignored her, and thousands paid the price. On March 5, 2001, Fortune magazine published Bethany McLean's article, "Is Enron Overpriced?" The piece opened with a simple question: how exactly does Enron make its money? McLean noted Enron's stock was trading at roughly 55 times trailing earnings. She described the company as a big black box whose complex financial statements confused even Wall Street professionals. Credit analysts quoted, "If you figure it out, let me know," laughed Todd Shipman at S&P. "Do you have a year?" asked Ralph Palecchia at Fitch. When McLean interviewed Skilling, his response was hostile. He called McLean unethical. After the article published, Skilling tried to spin it. "Yes, it is a black box, but it is a black box that's growing the wholesale business by about 50%. That's a good black box." But doubt had been planted. October 16, 2001, Enron dropped its bombshell. The company announced a $618 million third-quarter loss and a $1.2 billion write-down of shareholder equity. Stock closed at $33.84, October 22, 2001. Enron publicly disclosed that the SEC had opened a formal inquiry into potential conflicts of interest related to Fasto's partnerships. Stock plummeted to $20.75. October 24, 2001, Andrew Fasto was fired as CFO. Too late. November 8, 2001. Enron filed documents revealing a massive restatement of earnings. Income had been inflated by $586 million since 1997. Combined with the October write-down, shareholders' equity was lowered by $1.7 billion, 18% of previously reported equity. Enron admitted it had been systematically overstating profits and hiding debt for years. November 9, 2001. In a desperate bid for survival, Enron announced it would be acquired by smaller rival Dynegy Inc. for approximately $7.8 to $8.4 billion in stock. The deal seemed to offer a reprieve, but only briefly. November 28, 2001. The day it all ended. A triple catastrophe struck. Standard & Poor's, Moody's, and Fitch all downgraded Enron's debt to junk status. This triggered $3.9 billion in debt that came immediately due. Debt Enron couldn't pay. That same day, Dynegy's board voted to terminate the merger. CEO Chuck Watson said, "At the end, you couldn't give it to me." Enron's stock price fell to 61 cents per share. At around 11 a.m. on the trading floor, an announcement came over the loudspeaker. Standard & Poor's has downgraded Enron's debt. "We no longer have collateral to trade. Please stop trading." A consultant present described what happened. The huge floor with hundreds of traders shouting into phones suddenly became deathly quiet. Eyes and chairs swiveled. The news quickly sank in. That announcement was equivalent to the beep of an EKG shifting to the straight tone of a flat line. Enron was dead. There was no resuscitation. By noon, the entire floor was drunk. Employees began stacking belongings onto rolling office chairs and heading to elevators. December 2, 2001. Enron Corporation filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection with $63.4 billion in assets. The largest corporate bankruptcy in U.S. history. Stock traded at 26 cents per share. Approximately 20,600 employees were affected. 5,600 jobs were ultimately lost. Nearly $2.1 billion in pension plans was liquidated. Shareholders lost $74 billion in market value. The stock had lost 99.7% of its value from peak to bankruptcy. The smartest guys in the room had destroyed everything. The day after bankruptcy, 5,000 workers were fired without warning. 1/4 of the company. At Enron's Showcase 50-story headquarters, 4,500 of 7,500 workers were let go. Employees were given 15 to 20 minutes to pack their belongings into cardboard boxes and leave the building. Security guards escorted them out. The image became iconic. Stunned, angry employees sitting on the sidewalk in front of the crooked E logo. Cardboard boxes at their feet, heads in their hands. Laid-off workers received a mere $4,500 to $4,600 severance, regardless of how many years they had worked. Adding insult to injury, Ken Lay took the last $1 million from a special loan account the company had set up for him. Just hours before declaring bankruptcy, he used it to pay off his mansion. 2 days later, employees each received their final check for $4,600. Charles Prestwood, 63, worked 33 years in the natural gas industry. By the time he retired in October 2000, he had built $1.3 million in retirement savings, all in Enron stock. Within a year, he had lost 99%. In congressional testimony, Prestwood said, "I can tell you, without pulling punches, something stinks here. I lost everything I had. It was from rags to riches back to rags." When asked why he didn't sell earlier, Prestwood responded, "I go back to that one simple word of loyalty. Loyalty to a corporation. Loyalty to something that I helped build." Now with heart disease and his house not yet paid off, Prestwood faced a nightmare retirement. You take old retirees like myself. We're too old to get out on the job market and start life again. Janice Farmer, 64, retired from Enron with nearly $700,000 in her 401k. She said, "I was proud to invest in Enron. The company encouraged me and others to do so. This was my life savings, my nest egg." Farmer became concerned as the stock began to slide. She called on October 22nd to sell, but was told she had been locked out of her account. When she was finally able to cash out on November 26th, she received just $20,418 out of her $700,000 retirement savings. In congressional testimony, Farmer said, "I cannot help but feel that I and thousands of employees like me have been lied to, and we have been cheated. Instead of being rewarded for my hard work and loyalty, I am left with a lawsuit." She now faced surviving on a $63 monthly Social Security check. "Sometimes at night, I do feel real bitter over what I have lost, because it was a big part of my future, and I do not know how I am going to handle the future now. All I can do is hope and pray that I do not get sick." The pension catastrophe resulted from a toxic combination. More than half of employees' 401k savings, approximately $1.2 billion, was invested in Enron stock. Enron prohibited workers under 50 years of age, or with less than 5 years of service, from selling the portion of their 401k that had been the company's contribution. Most devastatingly, from October 29th through November 20th, 2001, Enron prevented all workers from selling any company shares in their 401k accounts, claiming this was necessary to switch plan administrators. During this lockdown period, Enron stock collapsed from $35 to less than 50 cents per share. While employees watched helplessly, top executives were quietly unloading massive amounts. Between January 1st and August 31st, 2001, the top 20 executives and directors sold nearly 3 million shares for $117 million. Kenneth Lay sold off $90 million worth of stock, while telling employees at a September 26th meeting that Enron stock at $27 was an incredible bargain. 20,000 jobs lost, $2 billion in pensions vaporized, families destroyed, lives shattered, the human cost of the smartest guys in the room. The most devastating loss was that of J. Cliff Baxter, 43 years old, one of Enron's top executives, Jeff Skilling's closest friend. Baxter had served as vice chairman and chief strategy officer. Unlike other executives, Baxter had warned Skilling repeatedly that the off-balance sheet transactions were wrong. Sharon Watkins wrote in her memo that Cliff Baxter complained mightily to Lay and all who would listen about the inappropriateness of our transactions with LJM. Baxter resigned from Enron in May 2001, ostensibly to spend more time with his family and enjoy sailing. But after agreeing to testify before congressional committees about the scandal on January 25, 2002, Baxter was found dead in his black Mercedes-Benz, with a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. A suicide note was found expressing his despair. NPR's Wade Goodwin reported, Baxter shot himself on the side of a Houston highway, unable to face the possible federal indictment, and most of all, knowledge that he was likely to be called to testify against his friends and former colleagues. No Enron family suffered a more devastating loss than his wife and 2 children. The circumstances raised questions. An unnamed former business associate who spoke with Baxter 2 days before his death reported that Baxter was talking about perhaps needing a bodyguard, though I'm not sure where that idea came from. While the medical examiner ruled it suicide, the death represented the psychological toll the scandal took even on those who had tried to warn against the fraud. Cliff Baxter tried to stop it. He couldn't, and it destroyed him. The collapse created a second wave of job losses at Arthur Andersen, one of the world's largest accounting firms. 89 years old, 85,000 employees worldwide. They audited Enron. They approved the accounting. They certified the financial statements. They knew. When it was discovered that Andersen employees had shredded thousands of documents and deleted emails related to Enron audits after learning of the SEC investigation, the firm was indicted on obstruction of justice charges in March 2002. On October 23, 2001, during a conference call with the Enron crisis response team, Nancy Temple, Andersen's in-house attorney in Chicago, instructed everyone to make sure to follow the policy, authorizing the shredding. Partner David Duncan held a meeting with Andersen audit managers and handed out copies of the document retention policy. Duncan ordered his audit team to destroy documents at a pace quicker than required. From October 23 through November 9, 2001, massive, unprecedented document destruction occurred. A commercial-grade shredder was moved from Enron's headquarters to Andersen's offices. The shredder was used virtually constantly to destroy tons of paper related to the Enron audit in Houston, Chicago, Portland, and London offices. On October 26th, partner John Riley warned Duncan, "This wouldn't be the best time in the world for you guys to be shredding a bunch of stuff." Duncan agreed, but took no action. On October 31st, partner David Staub saw Duncan attempting to discard a document Duncan described as another smoking gun. On November 8th, the SEC served Andersen with subpoenas. On November 9th, Duncan's secretary sent an email. "Per Dave, no more shredding. We have been officially served for our documents." In June 2002, Arthur Andersen was convicted of obstruction of justice. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission does not accept audits from convicted felons. On August 31, 2002, Arthur Andersen surrendered its CPA license and went out of business, putting 85,000 employees worldwide out of work, 28,000 in the United States. The vast majority of Arthur Andersen's 85,000 partners and staff were not directly responsible for the Enron scandal. Yet they lost their jobs, their wealth tied to the company, their professional reputations. A former Andersen employee later wrote, "Like Enron, thousands of people were thrown out of work. Like me, many had no knowledge of what was going on with the Enron audits." In 2005, the Supreme Court unanimously overturned Arthur Andersen's conviction, ruling that jury instructions had been flawed. But by then, the firm was gone. The reversal was meaningless. The damage had been done 3 years earlier. 85,000 innocents destroyed, because their company enabled fraud. On May 25, 2006, after a 16-week trial and 6 days of deliberation, the jury convicted Kenneth Lay on all 6 counts of conspiracy and fraud, plus 4 additional counts of bank fraud in a separate bench trial. Jeffrey Skilling was convicted on 19 of 28 counts, including conspiracy, securities fraud, and insider trading. Andrew Fastow had become the star witness against both men. In a dramatic exchange, Fastow explained his crimes. Q. You've been asked about stealing from the house. Does the house include the investors at Enron? A. Yes, sir. Q. Who's the we? A. Myself and other members of senior management of Enron. A. What I'm saying is when you misrepresent the nature of your company, when you artificially inflate earnings, when you improperly hide losses, when you do things like this to cause your stock price to go up so you can sell your stock, that is stealing. During testimony, Lay showed flashes of temper and a contemptuous tone. When asked about spending $200,000 to rent a yacht for a birthday party, Lay snapped back. About contacting witnesses. I don't know that I have contacted witnesses. He had. About violating Enron's code of ethics. Rules are important, but they should not. You should not be a slave to rules either. Skilling testified for 8 days, showing arrogance and combativeness. Prosecutors noted that, over time, the very number of disagreements that Skilling presented to the jury began to appear implausible. After the verdict, jurors said, "I wanted to believe very, very badly what they were saying." One said Lay's attitude made me question his character. NPR's Wade Goodwin reported, "The jury said that Ken Lay's crass act, drawing down that last $1 million, defined for them his bad intent." Skilling was originally sentenced to 24 years and 4 months plus a $45 million fine. His sentence was later reduced to 14 years. He was released in February 2019 after serving 12 years. Lay faced up to 45 years in prison. Sentencing scheduled for October 23, 2006. But on July 5, 2006, approximately 6 weeks after conviction, Ken Lay died of a massive heart attack while vacationing at his Aspen home. He was 64 years old. On October 17, 2006, Judge Simeon T. Lake III vacated Lay's conviction under the legal doctrine of abatement ab initio. Death of defendant before sentencing and exhausting appeals results in vacated judgment. Lay died legally presumed innocent. Fastow pleaded guilty on January 14, 2004, to 2 counts of conspiracy. Originally facing 10 years, his sentence was reduced to 6 years for cooperation in prosecuting Skilling and Lay. He served 5 years and was released December 16, 2011. Fastow was required to forfeit $23.8 million in assets. Since release, Fastow has traveled the speaking circuit, telling audiences, "I found every way I could to technically comply with the rules, but what I did was unethical and unprincipled, and it caused harm to people. For that, I deserved to go to prison. Justice came, but too late for thousands of victims." The Enron scandal led directly to the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002, signed into law by President George W. Bush on July 30, 2002. Bush called it the most far-reaching reforms of American business practices since the time of Franklin D. Roosevelt. The legislation passed with overwhelming bipartisan support. The House voted 423-3. The Senate voted 99-0. Key provisions included Public Company Accounting Oversight Board, created a new quasi-public agency to oversee, regulate, inspect, and discipline accounting firms, ending the profession's self-regulation, auditor independence, prohibited auditing firms from providing certain non-audit services to audit clients, addressing the conflicts of interest that contributed to Enron's collapse. Arthur Andersen had earned $52 million from Enron in 2000, $27 million from consulting.CEO and CFO certification. Section 302 requires CEO and CFO to personally certify accuracy of financial reports quarterly. Officers take individual responsibility for accuracy and completeness of financial statements. Knowingly false certification is punishable by up to 10 years. Willfully false by up to 20 years and $5 million fine. Enhanced financial disclosures. Required disclosure of all off-balance sheet transactions like Enron's special purpose entities. Section 404 requires management assessment and external auditor attestation on internal controls over financial reporting, criminal penalties. Section 802 created criminal penalties, up to 20 years, for destroying, altering, or falsifying records, directly targeting the Arthur Andersen document shredding. Increased maximum sentences for mail and wire fraud from 5 to 20 years. Whistleblower protections. Section 806 established comprehensive protections for employees who report securities fraud, including protection against discharge, demotion, threats, and harassment. With remedies including reinstatement and back pay, the legislation fundamentally reshaped corporate governance, making CEOs and CFOs personally accountable, separating audit and consulting services, creating permanent oversight of the accounting profession. Initial compliance costs were significant, averaging $1 to $5 million for large companies. But the law remains in force today, continually evolving to address new challenges. Enron's collapse also reduced the Big Five accounting firms to the Big 4. PricewaterhouseCoopers, Deloitte, Ernst and Young, KPMG, with Arthur Andersen's destruction serving as a permanent warning about the consequences of enabling corporate fraud. The Enron scandal changed corporate America forever. Today, Enron is a cautionary tale, a reminder that intelligence without integrity leads to destruction, that short-term profits built on lies cannot sustain, that the smartest guys in the room can be the most dangerous. Kenneth Lay is dead, died legally presumed innocent, but history judges him guilty. He lied to employees, to investors, to America. He withdrew $1 million while employees got $4,600. He died wealthy. Employees died broke. Jeffrey Skilling served 12 years. Released in 2019. He is in his 70s now, living quietly. The man who called himself fucking smart destroyed a $70 billion company, lost 20,000 jobs, vaporized $2 billion in pensions for what? Hubris, greed, arrogance. Andrew Fastow served 5 years. He speaks at conferences, warns about ethical lapses, says he technically complied with the rules but was unethical and unprincipled. He personally made $45 million while employees lost everything. His redemption tour rings hollow. Sharon Watkins tried to warn them. Ken Lay ignored her. She became a symbol of whistleblowing courage. But she couldn't stop the collapse. Her warning came too late. Cliff Baxter is dead. Suicide on a Houston highway. The executive who tried to stop the fraud, who complained mightily, who couldn't live with testifying against his friends. His death represents the human toll, not just financial, but psychological, moral, spiritual. Charles Presswood lost $1.3 million. From rags to riches, back to rags. He testified before Congress, demanded justice. But he never recovered his savings. He died knowing the company he was loyal to betrayed him. Janice Farmer lost $700,000. Reduced to a $63 monthly Social Security check. She prayed she wouldn't get sick. Because she couldn't afford it, 20,000 employees lost jobs. $2 billion in pensions vaporized. $74 billion in shareholder value destroyed. 85,000 Arthur Andersen employees lost their jobs. Most innocent, all victims. In May 2004, more than 20,000 former Enron employees won an $85 million lawsuit. Each employee received approximately $3,100. A pittance compared to their losses. In September 2008, a $7.2 billion settlement from a $40 billion lawsuit was reached. On behalf of shareholders, distributed among 1.5 million individuals and groups. The settlement came from financial institutions accused of facilitating Enron's fraud, CIBC, JP Morgan Chase, Citigroup. While historic, it represented only a fraction of the $74 billion lost. Enron filed for bankruptcy on December 2, 2001 with $63.4 billion in assets. The largest corporate bankruptcy in U.S. history at the time. The collapse cost shareholders, employees, and creditors over $70 billion in lost capital and retirement savings. 22 Enron executives were eventually convicted of crimes. Arthur Andersen collapsed. The scandal led to the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, fundamentally reshaping corporate governance in America. Enron became shorthand for corporate greed and accounting fraud. A cautionary tale taught in business schools worldwide. The company that had been named America's most innovative company for 6 consecutive years became a symbol of how innovation without ethics, ambition without accountability, and intelligence without integrity can destroy not just a company, but thousands of lives. The images endure. Employees sitting on Houston sidewalks with cardboard boxes. A crooked E logo. Sharon Watkins' memo warning of an accounting scandal. Trader tapes celebrating Grandma Millie. Cliff Baxter's suicide on a highway. Ken Lay's final $1 million withdrawal. Charles Presswood's testimony. It was from rags to riches, back to rags. The smartest guys in the room were not smart. They were criminals. They destroyed Enron. They destroyed Arthur Andersen. They destroyed thousands of lives. And for what? Money, power, ego, greed. 20 years later, the lesson remains. Intelligence without integrity is dangerous. Ambition without ethics is destructive. Success without honesty is temporary. The smartest guys in the room built a house of cards. And when it collapsed, everyone paid the price except them.